Steve Portnoy, ABC News. Thank you. Uh, Michigan, yes. Despite the analysis, it's another win for Trump, another win for Biden, the presumptive nominees, and this thing rolls on. Super Tuesday around the corner. We'll get some expert analysis, but no surprises, as they say. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. Good morning to the nation. Streaming, of course. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. J-Dog on the boards. We have a sort of a wet, windy, wild one out there, but mild, J-Dog. I think it's going to get windy, more, kind of the winds will increase as we get going today and this afternoon, maybe even this evening, maybe more on the coast. But milder temperatures and a lot of rain today, and then things get cooler or more back to normal tomorrow, it looks like. So hopefully, whatever you're doing, take the raincoat, as they say. J Dog on the boards, Jack Heath. This is a Wednesday as we get going. We're going to be talking more about Michigan, more about Super Tuesday. Also, a couple interesting side notes as we get going this morning. I heard we were talking yesterday or the day before about some of the stories that they don't fit. The national media doesn't really want to focus on it because it might upset their. This is it's interesting. One of our analysts the other day put it very well. What we're seeing as we end February 2024 is a profound change even over a couple years ago. Think about this for a moment as we look at news coverage, news talk, politics, news, information, business news, healthcare news. A couple years ago, truly a couple years, just a short few years ago, people who might, like a certain style or perspective would watch Fox or CNN, and you had the MSNBC shows were doing better or well, sort of cable news. And now that's just sort of gone. It's just going down quickly. The viewership, the audience is thinning by the day. And a lot of it is because the coverage went from being subjective to kind of what those news executive producers and editors kind of felt the way they saw the world through their political eyes, not journalism eyes, to sort of anticipating what their listeners want to be fed. So it's getting worse. So in other words, this story this morning that a few outlets have, but not many, is Apple, one of the biggest, players out there on the high tech corporate cash earning side. Apple has scrapped plans to build an electric vehicle. They spent years planning to do that. Why did Apple scrap plans to build an electric vehicle? It's because one of the stories we're not seeing right now is the whole push and ramming it down our throats to go electric, and that fossil fuel is the enemy. No pun intended, is backfiring for a multitude of reasons: practicality, reality, cost of electric vehicles, and people can only afford what they can afford. Most people can't afford to spend over $100,000 for an electric vehicle. And then the whole irony on how these things were subsidized and rammed. And I'm not saying, by the way, electric vehicles are going away, leaving our vocabulary or our nomenclature. That's not what I'm saying at all. They're here. They're not going away. You've seen major brands adjust their fleets the last few years to offer more hybrids, more, electric, gas, if you will, or electric. And, you've seen a lot of lines push it, and then all of a sudden they're backing off it. And they found out a few things: more expensive to build, more expensive to buy, more expensive to replace that battery. But then the other inconvenient truth, in terms of why the media won't cover this right now, is the fact if the whole thing is based on climate change and pollution, a lot of people now have read about the toxicity of these batteries, the lithium, the cobalt, the mining, the exploitation of young children in certain countries to mine these precious, I guess, not minerals, but things from the earth to make the electric vehicles. So they're exploiting children to make them, and the cost of replacing them. And then the pollution factor of an electric vehicle, you could argue, is no less or more than a brand new, Ford F-150 2024 pickup truck with all the all the good emissions and all the low output and all the efficiency. So the whole electric vehicle, but Apple not making an electric vehicle, it's kind of a big story. But again, a few people will talk about it. As we also get going this morning, I don't know if you're into like cryptocurrency, because I was talking yesterday, ironically, about this the last few days, but Bitcoin has been going up like a rocket the last few days. And some people are starting to scratch their heads because with the whole meltdown of the platforms and what's his name, was it Friedman, and all the stuff, and a lot of the BS that went on, the cryptocurrency world, the digital side of things is not going away, and all of a sudden Bitcoin is up. I was looking at a story this morning because I'm not heavily into this stuff, but a lot of people are interested by it, and I think it's interesting because I don't think it's going away. If AI and all this technology is not going away, why would digital stuff and all the future stuff on? But right now, Bitcoin is up over $60,000 per Bitcoin. Like it's gone up. I mean, it's just shooting up. The other day, I think it was closer to 50,000, which is amazing that, for one Bitcoin, but it's over $60,000 right now. And a lot of people aren't talking about that. As we get going this morning, still President Biden met yesterday with congressional leaders to avert yet another government shutdown. Didn't really go too far. We'll see where it goes. Of course, the pressure will build and you'll see all the stories. Oh, if there's a partial government shutdown, these benefits may not be paid. This won't happen. The mail won't go out. These checks won't go out and all that stuff. I'm not saying that's not the case. Military veterans want to get, those serving need to get paid. I'm not saying it's not the case, but you'll see all the stuff and then the pressure and how we can't afford to have a government shutdown. We need to honor our obligations, and yet no one's talking about the debt, 34.2 trillion. So that's another story that really doesn't fit. And as far as we get going on this Wednesday morning, we're going to talk a little more about Michigan. Super Tuesdays around the corner, what it means. It seems like it's pretty much over. Nikki Haley, we had Governor Sununu on yesterday speaking on her behalf. Seems like she's determined to stay in this thing at least until Super Tuesday, but I can't see a path beyond that. But you never know, right? We're going to get some expert analysis. Our own White House correspondent, John Decker, on deck, Neil Levesque, Executive Director, Institute of Politics, St. Anselm College, on deck, and a whole lot more. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an H. Thousands of you are listening. Weekdays, 9 to 10 in particular, 9 to 11, online, digital, you name it, app, worldwide, desktops, Apple phones, Androids. Hey, Google, any smart device. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an H. So it's pretty cool to see the audience grow. And of course, our network of news stock stations right up into Portland, Maine, WTSN 1270 AM, 98.1 FM. Windy, mild, rainy Wednesday, a little bit cooler, back to more normal temperatures. And we're pretty close to that, a couple weeks, but about what, 20 days, J Dog, there, give or take. We're welcoming in spring. Hard to believe. Back on The Pulse of an H in a moment. If you could be a fly on the wall, as they say, Hunter Biden testifying behind closed doors. Look at all the stuff happening. The legal distractions and cases with Donald Trump, Hunter Biden, all the stuff. And yet here we go. Biden, Trump coming out of Michigan. Looks like Super Tuesday around the corner. The other thing is there well be the chances might be better than they were the last few times of a pretty serious government showdown or shutdown over what's happening, given the mood in Congress, what you saw the recent politics around the border bill, people digging in. John Decker, our own White House correspondent, joining us on this Wednesday morning. Good morning, John. Yes, thank you. What are you keying on? Plenty to talk about. I don't know if I've seen a time because it seems to be just getting worse, where you just have more divisions, more lanes, more people digging in, and frankly, not just with the House and the sort of the more conservative caucus stuff, but really all aspects. It just seems that let's just say the friendliness tone in D.C. across the aisle seems to be evaporating pretty quickly. Yeah, and typically these things sort of spilled one way or the other, but I think now that the blame and how people view Washington, including Democrats, I mean, everyone, Republican, it just seems that most people are looking at this going, "This what a dysfunctional body." Yeah, yeah, all this is more than likely, it seems. Thank you, John Decker, our own White House correspondent. Yeah, probably one couple jobs you probably don't want, right? Imagine being House Speaker in this environment. I mean, it did McCarthy, and I mean, Johnson's holding on, but it's this is a remarkable, in my opinion, could be a remarkable, when I say remarkable, unusual time coming up because the sides digging in. What they've done the last few times, they just kick this can down the highway, going into the holidays, end of the year. Let's avert a government shutdown. So we do. There's a last minute weekend bipartisan vote in the Senate or whatever. Government not shutting down. Yeehaw, yay, and everything continues. And then the next time, and then the next time. Averting a government shutdown. There's no long term agreements. This is how our government functions. And the name of the game is dysfunction and then the disdain because most people out here, I talked about this yesterday in some commentary. You, I, me, I mean, us, we, you can't run your businesses and household like this. We can't run states like this, but the federal government just is so dysfunctional. And it's cutting all every which way. I don't think people are just gonna, usually you hear going into election year, one side or the other doesn't want to be held responsible for a partial or a government shutdown. They don't want to be blamed. Well, at this point, I don't know if either party cares because people are going to blame both, not just Republic. If the House, if Johnson can't sort of herd the cats in the House and his own party, and the holdouts win, and they maybe, he might be, if they have a vote on him, he might lose his speakership. It's so tenuous and narrow. He's trying to balance and hold on there, trying to be everything to everyone. But that that conservative caucus or whatever it's called in the House if they hold on and just to say we need to finally hold Biden, Democrats, everyone, our fellow Republicans feet to the fire and make some real cuts, and we're willing to deal with the political fallout of a partial or a full-blown government shutdown, they may do it. I mean, we may go a few weeks into this one before and they always build in some money. You'll hear Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, say that we can meet, we can have a part, we can have government impasse and still meet our obligations, a few more weeks, but eventually they need to fund it or we start really seeing disruption. But right now, there are some people out there that would like to see disruption to make change. But and then the Biden administration up until now goes into these government shutdown periods saying, "Hey, we're not negotiating. There's no negotiation with a government shutdown. Just agree to keep things going and then we'll talk." And that's getting old because nothing changes. So Biden goes into this thing, the Democrats, the White House, Democrat leader Schumer, "Hey, now's not the time to talk about some spending pullbacks or cutbacks. We just got to agree to keep the government going another couple months, then we'll talk." But then they never do. They never do. There's nothing ever happens. And I have disagreement with some of our regular contributors on this, namely Brad Card, one of our political analysts and all-stars, who says, when government shutdown comes along, Jack, you can't you can't let it happen. You can't default on your obligations, our obligations. We have to pay our debt. You have to pay the bills. And I get all that to a point. But I want veterans and those in the military paid, you know, um, the government, federal government employees. This has happened before. They can get back paid. But the point is, I understand all the things that can happen, the ripple effects before you hear that social security checks won't be mailed out, because that's usually a false alarm. But the point is there is disruption and inconvenience and some hurt. But at what point can we see in Washington all people say we need to seriously cut federal spending? Seriously need to cut federal spending. We have a $34.2 trillion debt. And just kicking this can down the highway, you know, we all may think it's okay, but what are we doing here? So this one here, I know people aren't really thinking it could be the case. And then a lot of things hang in the balance. 60 more billion dollars in aid for the Ukraine, the situation with Israel and Hamas and Gaza. A lot of stuff hangs in the balance here. And on this one, and plus it's an election year. And you have Trump out there, Biden both going to the border tomorrow, immigration crisis, all this stuff happening. And no one's really saying, could we really see in March a real government shutdown versus a last minute 11th hour? We all agree to keep the government going and watch the finger pointing. I don't know what's going to happen on this one. It feels very unpredictable. We'll see if some of our analysts agree. Coming up, Neil Vec, Institute of Politics, Executive Director, St. Anselm College, talking about those Michigan results. And regardless of the analysis of the contest vote against Biden in Michigan or the Republicans who didn't vote for Trump, Trump and Biden won Michigan. It's rolling into Super Tuesday. This thing feels like it's already over. We'll see if the analysts agree. A whole lot more. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath, all the way down to Key Largo. Good morning on this Wednesday. Mild, rainy, windy here. Back in a moment. It's one of the ironic side stories that just flashed up on the networks is President Biden is going to Walter Reed Hospital today for his annual physical, which is something that's important for all of us, right? And you know the interesting thing on that is, especially if you're president of the United States, is there's no secrets, or are they? Are there? There were questions when Trump was president on the physicals. Here we have Joe Biden, and I'll say this for the record. I think most people would agree, given the schedules and the rigors of being president or running for president, even with Biden's stumbles and bumbles, I mean, on stage and up the stairs to Air Force One and the gaffes, and Donald Trump at his age, closer to 80 than 70, coming dealing with all these trials, running for president, going to rallies. I mean, I don't know, frankly, how either one at their stage in life can do it. And I mean that. I'm not being flippant. I'm not being a wise guy. I'm not being a political partisan when I say that. I mean both. I don't know about you, but you know, there are no guarantees in life. Health is wealth, or health is everything. You can't have it, you can't buy it, is my point. But when I get if I ever get to be near 80, the last thing I'm doing or think about doing is being in political office, running around, running for election, reelection, fighting off all the crazy stuff. I mean, I think that's when you maybe want to spend time with your loved ones, your friends, your families, enjoy life and grandkids. I look at this. So President Biden's going for his physical. On the one hand, what, at 81, years old, hard to believe he's a sitting president, right? And he's probably, compared to most 81-year-olds, and physically in pretty darn good shape. And I mean that I'm not being funny when I say that. Not all 81-year-olds go in and have a flying physical, or 71-year-old or 61s. But the real stuff that may not be measured in this physical are the mental capacity question. And look at all the polls, even among Democrats, too old, too confused. And this is what we have. And then Donald Trump is, as I said, he's not a kid anymore. He's getting up closer to 80 as well. And a lot of people, this is it. This is it. So anyway, Neil Levesque, Institute of Politics, Executive Director, Institute of Politics, St. Anselm College, joining us. He'll be calling in a minute on some analysis coming out of Michigan. And my point on these physical tests or physicals, they don't do a mental acuity test. They don't do, like, forgetfulness. If you're president, I don't think they do. They might ask you a few questions, but I don't think they're going to sit there and drill down. And it's remarkable that the special counsel, who was appointed not by Trump or Republicans to look into all the classified secret document stuff with Biden after, I think it was October 8th on a Sunday, the White House amazingly let the president sit down with this special counsel, and prosecutor, if you will, talking about his handling or holdings of secret documents. And if you read the report, but again, the national media didn't report much other than nice elderly man with poor memory. But I don't know if you all realize this, or if you care about it, or if it matters to you. It does to me. I talked about it at the time because I want to know who's making the calls when it comes to more airstrikes in Syria of Iranian-backed terrorist groups or whatever. In that interview with the special counsel, was the day after Hamas attacked Israel, actually, on that Saturday. The next day, they sat down. The special counsel said that Joe Biden did not recall the years he was vice president. He was vice president for 2 terms in the Obama administration. He didn't know the years. Think about that for a minute. Didn't know the years. I'm not I'm not these are the reports I read about the report. Didn't know the years he was vice president. Apparently gave a biographer for a memoir access to the secret documents he had, but he's not arrested. They don't charge Biden. We all know about the search warrant at Trump's place, but they don't charge Biden because special prosecutor said his conclusion was he's actually a very nice elderly man. He's talking about president of the United States, not former president. He's not talking about a former president. Nice elderly man with a poor memory. Probably can't charge him. He doesn't have a memory of any of this handling. Unbelievable. So today a physical at Walter Reed, but I don't know if we'll touch or change the narrative. Neil Levesque, St. Anselm College, Institute of Politics. What would you give a good speech this morning? Well, how did it go? Yeah, I mean, we had Governor Sununu on yesterday. He said a lot of people haven't voted yet, meaning Super Tuesday. That's why she should stay in there versus, a different answer might have been crazy world. You never know. A lot of things can happen between now and the conventions or, the actual wrapping up the nomination. But how long does she stay in? Neil, when we broadcast during the primary at your great institute, one of the things I love about your institute, it's kind of the museum of presidential politics in New Hampshire, first in the nation presidential primary state, where we've had such a high participation rate over the decades. And when you look at history and you go down the halls at your institute, there might be a shot of Jimmy Carter from way back, or a Bill Clinton, or a John McCain, or a George W. Bush. And you look at all the history that's rolled through New Hampshire. So you study this, you look at this, and a lot of academics is looking back, not to the future, but we look back to learn. I know it's early for next fall, but it looks like absolutely it's Biden and Trump. Here we go again. We don't know where anything will be. Let's assume the economy is about where it is today. We don't know what's going on in the world, but we know the divisions. We know Trump's got his support. We know a lot of independents may not like Trump. And here we go again. It's sort of, it feels like a toss up. Do you have any sense historically? I'm not saying you to predict the Super Bowl now for next November, but if you had to say today, and this is the hypothetical, maybe you could answer. Forget who you like, forget who you support or would support, because you're right. You call balls and strikes down the middle. But if you were going to be kind of the head coach of Trump or Biden's team, and you wanted to win, which car would you pick? And I'm not on what you want, but which one do you think is got a better chance to winning the Super Bowl in terms of the election? Because here we go again. It's a replay. It's a rematch. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think that's going to be one that's going to be very much alive. I don't know on the economy. I think it's going to be a mixed bag. I think a lot of people. I think they're going to look at the world. The other thing you and I haven't talked about is foreign policy. Usually doesn't automatically impact domestic presidential election. But when you look at the uncertainty of the Middle East, when you look at what's going on still in the Ukraine, Putin, China, I think a lot of people are a little bit worried about out there. And we'll see, we'll see. But the other thing, Neil, isn't it amazing? As well defined as Biden, I mean, who doesn't know Joe Biden by now, right? Am I right? And who doesn't know Trump by now? It's amazing. You have probably the two more known players we've ever seen running for president again. I mean, there's no mystery. If there was another person in there, say Trump had tripped up, didn't run, say a DeSantis was in there or Nikki Haley, a lot of people don't know these people that well yet, right? Joe Biden's been around 50 plus years. Everyone knows him, right? That's why I think he was put in there the last time. And everyone knows Trump. It's amazing the definition on these two characters running for president. Yeah. Yeah. And the hard thing is New Hampshire because New Hampshire doesn't have that many, but they might have precious electoral college votes in this whole thing in the general. And I was talking to someone yesterday, someone you and I know, but I won't say here. And good mind, very good mind in this stuff. And when you're talking about whoever the Democrat nominee for governor is going to be, presumably Joyce Craig or Cindy Warmington, and it seems that even Senator Hassan and Senator Shaheen camps are split on those two. And whether it's presumably on the Republican side, Kelly Ayotte or Chuck Morse, whoever are the nominees. One of the person I talked to yesterday said, because the Democrats will make abortion an issue, even if it's not a legitimate one beyond the current law here in New Hampshire, but they'll make it an issue in terms of abortion bans. But whoever the nominees are, the person said it's really hard to predict who's got a leg up in the governor's race because it's all going to depend on Biden and Trump and who's sort of swaying better here in New Hampshire when you go into the presidential general election. Yeah. It's hard to say, it really is, and because, the presumpt that I think the other thing is the models last time that I think the real playbook that was never published was after New Hampshire, where Biden did so badly, turned it around in South Carolina. The powers to be behind the scenes, whoever that was, because remember, Biden was not an incumbent president. He was a vice president, but he hadn't been president yet. Get behind Joe Biden. He can win the general. He can beat Trump in a general with independent voters. That was 4 years ago. Today, you look at these polls, I don't think you can say that same assumption holds because independents may not like Trump personally. They may not like what he says sometimes. They may not like how he acts, but they're looking at the two saying, I care about my wallet, my 401k. I care about the world. I care about my kids' future. I care about the border. If those prevailing winds are there, Trump may do better than people think with independents, even if they don't admit they voted for him. You try and tell independents and Democrats that Joe Biden is the future. He's got a new plan. He's got a record now. He's got a fresh record looking at immigration, the world, and a lot of things, plus all the forgetfulness. And I think the independents, you can't assume that they're going to vote against Trump in large numbers this time. I may be wrong. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Neil, before I let you go, you have led and organized many presidential debates at St. Anselm and done a super, super job. I know the last time, and it wasn't the colleges, it was just basically the whole Republican reality when Nikki Haley said, when it was getting to be a two-person race, if Trump doesn't debate, and Trump hasn't done any debates this time. But in the presidential, presuming and it looks like it is going to be Trump and Biden, Biden, Trump again. Can you picture, and I'm being totally serious, downstream, whenever it would be, presumably, whenever they would do one or two presidential debates, can you picture? I can picture Trump debating if he can contain himself. But can you picture Joe Biden now for 90 minutes doing a debate and being crisp and sharp and clearly communicating? I mean, I'm asking a question because I've watched him do like 5-minute pressers or try to. And I listened to him the other night, some of the audio with Seth Meyers. Can you imagine a real presidential debate between these two, or do you think it will happen? Yep. Interesting. Yeah. All right, Neil. Make it a good one on this Wednesday. I appreciate it. Neil Vec, St. Anselm Institute of Politics. Thank you. All right, going to sneak in a quick break. When we come back, top of the 10 o'clock. Another great contributor, Matthew Bartlett, Darby Field Advisors. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Back in a moment. Thank you, J-Dog. I appreciate it. The other day I um, saw a lot of communication. I didn't know this person, but a lot of people, in fact, thousands of people paid tribute recently to Portsmouth police officer Philip Miles, also known as just P. He was a veteran. He passed away February 16th, but he had an amazing career. He also he worked with police from all over, and eventually the procession. I think there was at Central Cemetery in Rye. They had more than 1,000 people attend a graveside service. Portsmouth Police Honor Guard was there. They had the salute to him. He was known to many as a Portsmouth Police family member, if you will. He graduated from Portsmouth High School, I believe, and he served in the military in the Army National Guard during the Vietnam War. He eventually, I think he joined the Portsmouth Police back in like 1978, and people viewed him as a true street police officer, supervisor, and did a lot in the community in the Seacoast, and very well thought of. And then he also, I believe, he remained connected to law enforcement as he got older, continuing part time with the Portsmouth Police Department Auxiliary until 2020. So he joined Seacoast Harley Davidson. He was also known big on the biker side. He ran the New England Police vehicle leasing. He managed the leasing of police motorcycles at the departments across the Northeast. He was a big motorcycle instructor. Apparently, one of the reports. This was on the patch out of Portsmouth. Give them credit. He's trained and certified over 1,000 police officers to ride. So pretty cool. He's involved in the community, and he loved a lot. Had a lot of great energy, and well thought of. So again, I just wanted to a little bit uh, tardy in giving full respect here to him and how well he thought of. And there was a great article, if you want to look it up. Jeff Hastings with the Portsmouth, the Patch in Portsmouth wrote, and there was some other coverage and some folks. I know Margaret Culp and others posted pictures, and there was a great scene of that procession. So thoughts to him. As we get going on this Wednesday, it's New Hampshire vacation week. Not exactly the weather forecast today on this Wednesday, midway point in the week that the ski areas want. Mild temperatures, rain, windy stuff today. Now things get back to the more normal seasonal colder stuff tomorrow, but today we're going to feel like into the mid to upper 50s, even though you got this balmy kind of rain, windy stuff. So a system pushing south, I guess, but you might get some more wind gust on the coast this afternoon, early evening. A little bit unusual right now. I don't know what the record is today, but we're looking for highs to be, as I said, mid to upper 50s. Then, as I said, J Dog, tomorrow, Thursday, hard to believe, as we get towards the end of the week, more seasonable, colder temps near 30. But then again, I heard on Saturday, J Dog, we're going to be back to like low 50s, possibly for a high on Saturday. Not a bad looking day. Saturday, that's a good day for you. Well, yep. Oh, you going to the opener? Oh, cool. By the way, you're right, but mild temperatures on Saturday, 52 for a high in the coast, but in Concord, but you're right, cloudy and rainy, but mild, mild. Yeah, yeah. Tomorrow, as I said, we're looking at about 32 for a high, cloudy, and then Friday actually, J Dog, I take it back, might be the day. Friday, looking at near 50 for a high and complete, all sunshine. So there you go. Friday's the upper for you, whatever you're doing. All right, coming up, we'll update you. Some of our political pundits and experts and analysts coming up in the next hour. Rory O'Neill also joining us this morning. And then in the 11 o'clock hour, we got a great, great guest this morning live. He's known as Rabbi Ron Fish. He's the interim director of the Anti Defamation League in New England. He's going to talk about this reality of anti Semitism. We saw the whole run on college campuses after the Hamas attack on Israel. But I've never seen in my lifetime um, such blatant, open anti Semitism. I think it's repugnant. I think a lot of people don't know their history on this earth. of mankind. They don't know the history of World War II. They don't know the history in terms of post World War II, uh, Israel, our alliance with Israel, the numbers in the Middle East, the goals of Hamas, Hezbollah, Tehran, other Arabic nations to obliterate Israel, and yet, and a lot of people just gloss over. They literally gloss over who started this current war. They don't even talk about it. They blame Israel for being the aggressor in Gaza. They blame Israel, not Hamas. It's amazing. But we're going to hear from Rabbi Ron Fish, interim director of the Anti Defamation League at 1120. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Back in a moment.